for people who like things being simple. We cannot delete the service. Isn't that silly? It's basically VMs in cloud, right? It's simple, and whether it meets your needs, that's a different question. Is it really simple? It's easier. Is it? I don't think so. Blah, blah, horrible things. Containers, containers, containers. All we are hearing the last couple of years, and especially now by the end of 2020, is containers. Everything is packaged as container images. Everything is deployed one way or another as containers. And AWS is jumping to that game, arguably later than others, arguably resisting more than others, but it is jumping on that game. And we can see that everything is becoming container based in AWS as well. We got ECS. ECS was container based from the start, but that was arguably the only container based service for a long time. And it's proprietary, really. Are you sure you want to put your hands into a container based world based on something that is proprietary and only AWS knows whether it works? Anyways, if you like ECS, we got Copilot. Watch the video, it's somewhere there, and it's finally getting the flow that we need how to do it well. AWS is also jumping into container-based scheduling with Kubernetes, which is EKS or Elastic Kubernetes Service, which it wasn't good until recently, but now it's becoming okay. Now it's finally fine, more or less. And we got Lambda. Lambda is functions as a service, and now guess what? It can use container images to deploy those functions. Awesome. But what about the simplest possible way to operate in AWS? I know you are probably an expert that likes spending eternity learning about all the services and bits and pieces of AWS, and you're setting up your VPCs and your this and your that. But how about a service that is designed for beginners, that is not beginners, for people who like things being simple? And that service in AWS is Lightsail. And Lightsail, until recently, until almost now, was great, but it's basically VMs in cloud, right? And we are way past VMs in cloud because we need VMs in cloud, and in a way that we don't care about all the details and stuff like give me VMs, but we also need to deploy container images there. Can we make that easy? Can we combine containers with Lightsail? And you know what? It is happening. We finally got support for containers in Lightsail. And that's awesome news because that means that we have finally simple service to create infrastructure. We have the support to deploy our containers in something that might not fit big banks, and huge corporations, but it is very good for small companies, for small teams who just want simple. But until now, Lightsail was missing the critical part. Hey, how can I put containers over there? And now I know you could SSH into your VMs and run whichever containers you want, but that's not simple, right? Lightsail is about simplicity. If it's not simple, then hey, why would I use Lightsail in the first place? So in this episode, we are going to explore how we can deploy container images in a very simple way to the simplest possible service in AWS, which is Lightsail. But before we do, there are two things we need to do. First of all, you need to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon and do all the things that you might not have done. If you have, then thank you already in advance. And the second thing we need to do is prepare. Let's see what do we need to set up in advance to be able to explore this demo. If you want to follow along, if you don't want to follow along, then just jump through this part. But if you want to repeat what I'm doing, then here are the instructions how to prepare. If you want to follow along what I'm doing, you should follow along because it's better to learn by doing. Then either you need to set up your laptop and your terminal with AWS CLI and the environment variables and the config and whatever else you need, or optionally you can choose to use Gitpod. If you don't know what Gitpod is, there's a link up there to figure out what Gitpod is. It's awesome. It will give you everything you need to work on this demo. So either set up your own machine to do what needs to be done, or use Gitpod if you want to use Gitpod. Register first, and second, and this is important, you will need to go to the settings of your Gitpod account and create a couple of environment variables. Specifically, you will need AWS Access Key ID, you will need AWS Secret Access Key, and you will need to set up some default region, whichever region you want, right? Now, I will assume that you know how to create access keys in AWS. If not, what should you do? Google it. Anyways, once you have access keys, create those environment variables if you want to use Gitpod. And the last thing you will need is to get the sample code of the sample application. It is in vFarsec Lightsail containers demo repository. So go to that repo, you will find the link in the gist that is in the description of this video, and either clone the code to your machine if you want to use your machine directly, or click the Gitpod button, which will give you everything you need. And that's what I'm doing right now. So I will create a workspace in Gitpod. I will not bore you with the time waiting, watching me watch until this is created. I will forward to the end of the process where my workspace is completely up and running, and we can do the demo. We can explore Lightsail with containers in 20 minutes or less. That's the goal. Now I will start with something that I never recommend, almost never recommend, and that is to use web UI. I don't like web UIs, I don't like clicking buttons. I think that we should do everything from a terminal, or even better, automate. But if you're using Lightsail, you might be a newbie, you might want something simple, or at least learning experience before you go to CLIs and what's not. So let's start with the web UI first, and then we're gonna go back to the terminal and this repository and what's not. So console, let's open AWS console, and what should we do? We should look for Lightsail. Let's search for Lightsail, here it is, and here we are. This is new. This here that says containers, that's new, that didn't exist until the end of 2020. So we're going to click it, we're going to be brave, and then create container service. Let's see how simple this is or isn't. It is simple, let me show you that. So create power means how much CPU and memory we want. I'm going to use it to leave it to micro, and then set up deployment. The first deployment that we are going to create, no, that's not it. We don't want to set up deployment. That's a predefined set of images, not that. We're going to specify a custom deployment. And here we are, container name. We're going to call this DevOps Toolkit. And the image will be one of the images that I already built. I will assume that you know how to build images. This will not build images for you. If you want something that builds images, then you might want to check Copilot. The link is up there, which works with ECS, but that's much more complex. So I'm assuming that you built image, and let's say that this is the image that you will use. You can use mine, that's okay. And the tag is 2.7.0. Launch command, there is no launch command in this case. No need for environment variables in my case, but we do want to open some ports. And the ports we want to open is going to be 80, because, hey, why not? And finally, public endpoint. Do we want that service to be accessible from the outside world, outside of our AWS account? Yes, and that will be DevOps Toolkit on port 80. And what else? Yes, we should identify our service, DevOps catalog, let's say, just to make it different. And no, let's make it DevOps Toolkit. Why not? And you will see that here we will get a publicly accessible address. It could be our own domain, but I don't have a domain for now. And finally, here is the big button, big orange button, create container service. Let's see how that works. It will take a couple of moments probably, or maybe longer. Let's see how long does it take. It is deploying. It is deploying. It is still deploying. I'm getting bored. I will fast forward to the end of this process. So I'll watch Netflix or something like that until the service is deployed. There we are. It's created. It's active. We got our container in a what was the name? Lightsail. Yes, finally. It took a bit of time, maybe longer than I would like, but anyway, it cannot get simpler than that. I mean, it can get simpler, but not much simpler than this. So what do we have here? Is there anything interesting to see? Maybe. Let's see this. Modify and deploy, show details, all the stuff. You can see logs, you can see whatever you need. Not whatever you need. You cannot see whatever you need. You can see whatever AWS allows you to see. But here are the logs, and we can see them. Logs of the service. You can filter the logs. Let me make that bigger for you. Here we are. You can filter the logs and see whatever you need to see from log perspective. You should be able to see the metrics here by clicking metrics. There is not much going on, as you can see, because this service is really not doing much, not having much traffic. But hey, metrics are there. You can see CPU utilization per minute. Not much. Maybe there's much more here. Yes, memory utilization as well. Those are the only two metrics you can see. Whether that's enough or not. I mean, if you want simple, that's enough. If you want serious, then it's definitely not. But this is not supposed to be a serious enterprise type of feature. It's simple by design, and I like that part. What else? Yes, let's go back to the deployments and see how we could maybe deploy a newer version of the service. And we can do that by extending this, not by extending this, by saying here, modify and redeploy. And creating new deployment, warning message, yes, I want to continue. And we can change, for example, here the tag to be something else, like 9.18. I just memorized, I know that I have those tags. And then we click save and deploy, and then wait a bit more. And you can see here the previous release is still active, and it will continue being active until the new release, then the upgraded version of the application is up and running. And then we just do that in a loop. We modify the deployment with the new tag, and then we have a new release and a new release, and that's basically all we need essentially with what's the name? Lightsail. Yes, Amazon. Why do I keep forgetting? Lightsail. That's about it. There's not much more to it than that. While we're waiting for the upgraded version to be deployed, it's still running. It's a bit slow. Everything is slow in AWS. We can open this. This is the public domain. We could change it to be our own domain, but I don't have a domain for this demo. So I'm going to open the one assigned by AWS, and here is a new tab, and you can see the service is up and running. There it is. There's the fancy demo application. By the way, buy the courses or the books from this app if you're interested, but let's not do commercial right now. And that's about it. That's not much more. We can deploy any release of a single container. We get the publicly accessible domain, or we can use our own. We can monitor the metrics based on CPU and memory, and we can see the logs. There might be a feature or two that I missed, but basically that's what it is. It's simple, and whether it meets your needs, that's a different question. But if simplicity is your thing, it's definitely very good one, very good service indeed. Anyways, let's see how we can do the same thing from a terminal. But before we see how we can do the same thing from the terminal, let's delete this application by clicking delete button here. And we cannot delete the service. Isn't that silly? Actually, this is kind of, it is a bit silly. We cannot delete a service while deployment is ongoing. So if we want to delete the service, we need to wait until it is active, until the deployment is finished. We cannot delete it in the middle of the process. So I'm getting bored again. I'm going to wait until the second release is up and running and then delete it. Come on, go. There we are. It's active. And that's it. We got second release. The previous one is inactive. Now, if we would open the domain, we would see a difference in whatever was included in the new release, in the upgraded version. And that's it. And the only thing left is to delete what we did and delete container service. Yes, I'm sure. Yes, I want to delete. And that's it. It's gone as if it never existed. Now, let's go back to the terminal. In my case, using Gitpod, it could be your terminal if you don't want it, and see how we can do all that stuff without clicking something in UI. So let's create the service first. There are two steps, right? There is a service which is Lightsail, and then there is a deployment, which is which container we want to run. So let's do AWS Lightsail create container service. And then we need to specify, what do we need to specify? Service name. Service name will be called DevOps Toolkit. It can be any name you want. And the power. Power is a very strange name for wanting to say virtual machine size. I don't know why they call it power, probably kind of to look easier. Anyway, micro. Scale will be 1. We could have 2, 3, 5, 7, 70, 700 instances of our application, but usually people running on Lightsail have 1 or 2, maybe 3 instances top, because once you go above that, once you go more than 2, 3 instances, 2, 3 replicas, you probably need a more complex system than this. This is limiting, but it's good for pop and mom shops. So output is going to be YAML. And let's see whether it works. Hey, there we are. We created a service. Actually, we didn't create a service. We started the process of creating a service, and you can see here that the state is pending, right? So let's see if it's pending. What else can we do? Lightsail get container services output YAML. So we can list all the container services. What did I do? What did I do wrong? I did something terribly wrong. Get container services, plural. It's a bit silly that their CLI doesn't work with singulars. Anyway, it's still pending. We need to wait and wait and wait until it is created. So what should I do now? I will try again. Still pending. Back to watching Netflix for a few minutes, I guess, until it is created, and then we can see how we can deploy stuff. Okay, I will not wait for this to be finished. Instead, let's go directly with the deployment while AWS is creating infrastructure, VM, whatever it needs to create. So AWS Lightsail create container service deployment. Now we need to specify YAML that should contain all the information we need. But what is the format of the YAML? Is it Docker Compose? No. Is it Kubernetes? Definitely not. You guess it, right? It's AWS proprietary. So let's generate a skeleton YAML that will serve as inspiration for defining the YAML of our own application, and that is generate CLI skeleton, and then YAML input. Input will be the argument. And here we see the skeleton, the format of how we should define our service name, containers, with image, command, public endpoint, all the options that are available from the browser, from console or web console. Now, luckily for you, I already created one, and it's available in the repository we cloned. That's why we cloned the repository. So this is the file, and we can see this is the YAML that I created in advance that defines the applications we want to deploy as Lightsail. So let's go ahead and deploy application defined in that YAML and packaged as a container image. That is AWS Lightsail, and then create container service deployment, and then here we are. CLI input YAML is going to be in a file. This is a file, and the file is DevOps Toolkit 2.7.0 and .yaml. And output, we want to specify output to be YAML. It can be different formats. It can be JSON, but who wants JSON, right? And here we are. The state is activating. So it will take a while until it is activated. And all we have to do is wait. Now, there are a couple of things that annoy me here. First, because it's opening it in VI or something like that. I need to press Q to exit instead of having it direct to std out. But hey, happy thoughts, right? Now, another thing I don't like is, why do we have create container service and create container service deployment? Why do we need 2 commands for something as simple as that? It would be awesome if it's a single command, but hey, again, happy thoughts. Now let's see the status of our services. So Lightsail, AWS Lightsail get container services and output YAML. Is it still pending or activating? It's still activating. It takes some time. Be patient while I watch something on my mobile. Fast forwarding. There we are. It's active. Now the application is up and running. It's active. We're finished, right? Are we finished? Yeah, we are finished. Let's do one more thing. Let's leave it clean and delete what we created before we conclude this. And to delete, there is a command, Lightsail, and then delete container service. And the name of the service is DevOps Toolkit. And the output should be YAML. I deleted my the service, everything that happened is now gone, and I can confirm that with AWS Lightsail get container services, and the output is YAML. And services are, what did I make a typo? I must have made a typo. Services, I always forget to put in plural. Here we are. And there are no services, it's deleted, it's gone. It takes a lot of time to deploy, but at least it is very fast at destroying stuff. That's improvement. So AWS Lightsail got support for containers. That's awesome. I like the simplicity of that all. I like simple things. Maybe because I'm a simple person, maybe because my brain cannot comprehend difficult stuff, but I like the simplicity behind Lightsail. Now, is it really simple? No, actually, it's not as simple as it can get. It's not as simple as the competition of AWS, of let's say Azure. And the reason why I'm saying that is, yes, it is Lightsail is a simple way to create VMs, and Lightsail now supports containers, which simplifies deployment of applications, packages, containers. It's simpler than it was, but still, what can I compare it with? Yes, I can compare it, for example, with Azure container instances. And Azure container instances are better because they are designed for containers as a service. They cannot scale, they're not really serious. It's like a toy project, but that toy project is still better than AWS Lightsail toy project for a simple reason, because it's designed for that, while containers were added on top of Lightsail. However, still, it is a huge improvement. I like the addition of containers to Lightsail, so big thumbs up for that. Anyway, it's all about containers, so without that, AWS would be losing that competitive edge. Which, do they have competitive edge? They have definitely in the number of users. Now, what is missing? What would make this service even simpler? That's auto-scaling. Now, you might say auto-scaling is not about simplicity, but I would argue it is, because I still need to think about, do I need one instance? Do I need two instances, three instances? Should I scale up? Should I scale down? Oh, there is increase in traffic. How do I know that there is an increase in traffic? I don't, because I don't have metrics. Blah, 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 horrible things. Anyways, auto-scaling would be a great addition. I hope that AWS will add it. Until then, if you want something very simple, use Lightsail. If you want something slightly more powerful and slightly more complex, or a lot more complex, use ECS. If you want something that is really future-proof and you don't mind learning about stuff, then go for EKS. So those are kind of like 3 layers maybe of something. Yeah, 3 layers of complexity. Until next time, cheers. See you. Why is it so slow? Let me try again. Why does AWS have to be so slow always? I cannot believe how hard can it be to deploy a container. And it's the simplest, smallest container ever.